Welcome to Kamjiverse. This is your exclusive bridge between the legacy of classical Africa and the triumphs of modern African revolutions. You won't find this connection anywhere else. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss an episode. Share this video with friends and family. Become a channel member or join our Patreon. The links are waiting in the description. Let's honor our sacred legacy and ignite our future together.
The ancient Kemetic writing system, or Medu and King Njoya's Akauku syllabographemic script share not merely a family resemblance, but a deeper genealogy rooted in Pan-African traditions of pictography, ideography, and phonetics. By tracing innovations from the Nile Valley through the Horn of Africa to West and Central Africa, we can see how Njoya's turn-of-the-century Bamum script consciously echoes the structure and spirit of Medu, preserving indigenous knowledge against encroaching colonial and missionary literacies. The story begins in the highlands of Ethiopia, where scholarly controversy has long swirled around the origins of Ge'ez. African-centered historian Ayele Bekeri argues that the Ge'ez script is fundamentally African rather than Semitic, citing the 16th century Kebra own claim that Ge'ez descended from the House of Ham. Parallels with Kemetic calendars, both traditions observe 5 or 6 epagomenal days, and the discovery of a stela dedicated to Horus in Aksum further suggests an intimate Kemetic Ethiopian nexus. Bekeri even identifies certain visual correspondences between Ge'ez graphemes and Kemetic hieroglyphs. Thus, from its very cradle, African writing questions the assumption that true literacy entered the continent only via Semitic or European hands. Moving westward, scholars like David Dalby's survey of nearly 50 indigenous African scripts over 5 millennia shatters the myth of a solely oral continent. Long before European intrusion, peoples from Nigeria to Cameroon, to Dahomey to the Sahara, had given graphical form to language. Nsibidi in Nigeria and Cameroon is a pictographic system whose mythic association with Thoth, the baboon-headed Kemetic deity of writing, places it in a direct symbolic lineage with Medu. And as we may know, various baboon species like Papio cinnacephalus and Papio anubis, are seen in Western Central Africa, have also been seen among Kemetic depictions and remains. The Tuareg Tifinagh alphabet descends from the ancient Libico-Berber signs, which also are derived from the ancient Medu, while the Dahomey script boasted some 200 graphemes by the 16th century. These pre-colonial innovations underscore that African societies had both the conceptual categories and social institutions necessary for sophisticated literacy long before the advent of Arabic or Latin scripts. The colonial era spurred further script inventions as indigenous intellectuals reacted to Arabic. The Vice Syllabary of Liberia, revealed in 1833, and the Mende script of Sierra Leone in 1921 arose from local agents seeking to record their own languages, but none stands as prominently as King Njoya's Akauku syllabary, whose 5 successive stages of refinement from the early Lerewa logographic system to the fully phonetic Akauku Vemve exemplify both a concrete strategy for cultural preservation and a conscious engagement with the Kemetic prototype. Kemetic influences permeate West and Central African writing traditions. The baboon of Nsibidi lore and the ibis or Kala bird in Tenufu and Akoi iconography recall Jehudi's dual totems. Scholars like Talbot, Obenga, and Kuvi Gomez have demonstrated with comparative glyph analysis that Nsibidi and Dahomey signs mirror the structural logic of Kemetic pictograms and hieratic signs. Migration models, notably those of Shekanta Diop, link Soninke and Mandinka populations to post-6th century BCE Nile Valley diasporas, suggesting channels through which writing and knowledge could flow. Yet, the flourishing of Medu and Kemet depended on strong centralized states from the Old Kingdom to the New Kingdom. West African kingdoms such as Ghana from the 6th to 11th centuries often lacked comparable bureaucratic apparatus, while Arabic Ajami literacies and later colonial disruption eroded indigenous scripts. The Ma'afa European conquest shattered political structures, precipitating the decline of many African writing systems, even as they laid bare the resilience of those that survived. Despite these trials, lexical and symbolic continuities testify to a shared African semiotic heritage. The Kemetic Mer tool glyph survives in Pular, Wolof, and Mandinka vocabularies. The Senet pillar glyph appears in Pular, as Salndu, in West African ritual staffs. The Khepes scepter resonates in the Saqqara sabers of present-day Congo. Sacred sounds like the Hedwes, Gores, used in both Kemetic tombs and Dogon burials, as well as the Ankh or Lithe, endure in the Pular Wonki, Wolof, Bakanu Dal, and Dogon Adinya Kini symbols. Even everyday objects, the Pular Krang, wooden bowls, and Burkina Faso's Simpande, harvesting sickles, match otherwise unidentified hieroglyphs, underscoring a millennia-old material culture matrix. Scholarly debates over African scripts often pit African-centered champions like Bekeri and Diop, who stress indigenous agency against Eurocentric revisionists, such as Galtier, who credit colonial-era innovation. Theophilo Benga's own classification of Ge'ez shifted over the decades, from a Semitic-influenced script to one asserting deeper African roots, reflecting the evolving historiographical stakes. Preservation challenges further complicate the picture. Many African scripts, the Lukasa memory boards of the Baluba, fragmentary palm leaf manuscripts across the Sahel, were recorded on perishable media and confined to secretive initiatory societies like the Mbudye, and many scholars believe that almost all of the African writing systems originated in secret societies. Without deliberate rescue, these traditions vanish with the decay of organic materials and the passing of elder custodians. In recent decades, however, institutions such as UNESCO and projects like Histoire Générale de l'Afrique have worked to recenter African textual heritage. Digitization initiatives, most famously in Timbuktu, promise to salvage what remains of fragile manuscripts, reconnecting scholars and communities with their autogenous literacies. It is within this cultural and intellectual ferment that King Njoya of Bamum emerges. Raised under the regency of his mother, Queen Japninke, after his father, Mvunsangu's assassination, Njoya internalized the existential threat of colonial violence in the Ma'afa. Drawing on his encounters with the neighboring peoples and European modernity, he launched a mission at the turn of the 20th century to modernize the traditional Lerewa symbol system into a syllabary capable of recording Bamum history, law, and administration. African writing generally evolves through 4 stages: pictorial drawings, in pictograms, ideograms, which are sounds representing ideas, a syllabic phase, which are sounds representing syllables, to a graphemic or phonetic phase. Njoya's systematic refinement mirrors this universal trajectory. His first script, Lerewa, circa 1895, reduced an unwieldy 700 signs to 510, blending some 80% pictograms of natural objects with 20% ideograms and phonograms, and included 10 arithmetic digits and at least 1 punctuation mark. Written multi-directionally, left to right, right to left, top to bottom, and bottom to top on clay, wood, and animal skins using charcoal. Lerewa laid the groundwork for a scholarly order, dedicated to the script's promotion. Between 1899 and 1901, the Mbima, or mixture phase, trimmed the inventory to 539 characters by excising 116 and adding 45 phonetic signs to remedy linguistic gaps. It retained 10 digits and 1 punctuation sign, while sharpening its practical utility. In early 1902, Njoya unveiled Nyinyi Fafu, which means God has given grace, further paring the set to 381 signs and adding a second punctuation mark, and mandating left-to-right writing. This major reform, prioritizing ideograms over pictograms, catalyzed a bloom of correspondence, property deeds, and school exercises as Njoya established formal classes and began translating scriptural texts. By 1907, the Rinyi Fafu stage compressed the script to 286 characters, retained 10 numbers and 2 punctuation signs, and streamlined logograms for faster reading and writing. A year later, the Rinyi Fufen iteration eliminated all pictograms, leaving 205 ideograms and syllables in a true logophonetic system. Finally, in February 1910, Njoya completed the transition with Akauku, a set of 83 characters, 70 graphemes with 10 digits and 3 diacritics. And its expanded form, Akauku Mvemve, had 91 characters, 70 syllable graphemic signs, 10 digits, 3 diacritics, 3 punctuation marks, and 5 arithmetic signs. Over roughly 15 years and 5 phases, Bamum scribes gained a compact, efficient script capable of maps, birth certificates, architectural plans, court records, and comprehensive archives. As a historian, Njoya codified Bamum origin stories in Sangam, Libanor Oscar, and Histoire et Coutume de Bamum, situating his people's beginnings in the Happy River Valley. Motivated by a desire to protect the Bamum from the contamination of external Judeo-Christian narratives while engaging syncretically with Abrahamic traditions, he excluded major Abrahamic figures from his lineage list, emphasizing only African characters whose ties to West Asia were strictly commercial. These texts serve as documentary bulwarks against the hyperdiffusionist claims and castigations against African-centered studies by outsiders and the Hamitic hypothesis. Importantly, Njoya's pre-Lerero pictograms, like those traced by Diop and Obenga to Paleo-African systems, bear the imprint of Medu Necher's influence, testifying to a shared continental logic of sign-making. Thus, Akauku is not a mere local invention, but an intentional Pan-African reawakening. By rearticulating ancient pictograms, ideograms, and syllables into a modern script with explicit digits and punctuation, and guided by 4 recognized stages of writing, Njoya preserved Bamum culture, asserted indigenous autonomy, and affirmed the enduring legacy of Kemetic writing. In doing so, he refuted the oral continent stereotype and demonstrated that Africa's scriptural diversity, rooted in Medu Necher and nurtured across its breadth, remains a wellspring of intellectual self-determination.
Join the Comgiverse Patreon for exclusive content, behind-the-scenes access, and special perks. Support the channel and connect with a community of revolutionary intellectuals and scholars. Click the link in the description to join now.